also have file shares, which these are your choices in storage, where you can use it almost like it was a file share on your own personal network. And then they started to offer tables and queues. Now, this was to manage really around web apps. They're not really used anymore. Don't even think about them. So, and file shares, you could still do that, but really in a lot of ways, data lakes have sort of pushed this off, and they're here because they have to be there because people who still use them. But blob storage is really just about containers somewhere that you throw all your stuff in, and there's nothing more to it but that. So if we open up this tool, which is called Storage Explorer, which is the tool like File Explorer that we use to look at stuff, we can see that under blob storage, I have this blob containers, and I've got one called Sharon, and I have some files here. Now, I can upload files, which I did from my local machine. So I would be able to just go and download that file, whatever it is, from the Treasury. I did bill rate data. I have no idea what that really is, but anyway, and upload that. And now it is available in the Azure infrastructure for me. Now, one of the challenges you're going to have is how do you set up all this storage so that it's not, the data swamp, the permissions are correct. I tend to use blob storage for ad hoc stuff. And I put a little blob container out there for an app or a person or whatever. So within your field, within your business, your data lake is your corporate asset. Your blob storage is really just kind of a temporary place to put stuff. Use it however you want. But don't necessarily, unless you have to use it for your kind of corporate workspace. So because it's called share, and that means I could just throw whatever stuff up there I want. So now, if I was daily getting temporary or treasury data, I might create a blob container that's called, treasury data, and stuff goes up there automatically, which we can do. But the point being is that you have to be sure to kind of guard your data lake as a corporate asset, and then use blob storage, which is real fast and real great for just storing files, to be honest. It's really good at that for other stuff. So then you also have a data lake. Now, what's different about the data lake is really one thing when you create one, and it's really not obvious. So I'm going to show you how to create a data lake. It's under storage. Again, this is a thing where they called it a data lake, but a data lake is actually a logical construct. And so they've moved it back to storage, which is really what it should be. I mean, a data lake is just storage. So if I'm going to create a storage account, I'll put a resource group, which is just a logical grouping within a subscription. I'll create a name. I'm going to make one up so that I don't conflict with anybody else. And then if I said create right here, I would have blob storage. Just a place to go and throw. It's just a file location. But if I go here to next, ignore that, and then go to advanced and click on this, that now makes it a data lake. And what it's done is it's added some features that and that actually has changed some of the structures underneath to create what's called a namespace or a file system. It's really confusing. It doesn't make a lot of sense, to be honest. Don't worry about it. It's just because of leftover stuff. And I think as Microsoft moves on, they're going to be just calling these things different kinds of storage. And the data lake will remain sort of a conceptual thing, which is a place where you store stuff. Any questions on that?
Nope.
So say you have some information in your blob storage. Can it be transferred easily to other blob storages or
Absolutely.
to the data lake if you decide? Okay.
Yeah, everything in Azure is really easy to move around. It's really fast. It's more of a process thing, which, the data lake, both of them have some different features. And there's a whole bunch of tools that, because blob storage came first, that work against blob storage that did not work against the data lake, because the data lake has been built up to be more distributed. It's almost, it actually uses a distributed framework in a different way that's more Hadoop-like. So, but those features that allowed you, that were these other third-party tools were using to be able to just immediately go to and look at blob storage as if it was file storage on your local machine were not available. Now they just released, so I think it's actually last week they released. So the problem what before of which one you choose was, well, I still have to use blob storage because there's a bunch of tools that only will use that. I still like the construct of the data lake being controlled, and when I want to give somebody stuff to do, a place just to store stuff, I give them a blob storage. But you can work against them now almost the same way. Big systems, big data, we want that in the data lake because that's distributed when we get to it. So you just kind of have to know the, know the history. But this is something people have a lot of trouble with is what's the data lake, what's blob storage, how do I use the two? I'm really confused. So that right now is more of a business decision than a technical decision.
Okay.
All right, so I've got my data up here in the blob storage, which means it's in Azure. But now I want to actually start moving some data around. And if we go back to our picture ingest, that's where, how do I get all this data into the data lake? And why do I care? I mean, why do I put it into one place? Well, the reason is actually that one of the biggest problems about people building data warehouses or trying to get to data is there's so many different systems. I have to understand that system, but I have to also get access from that person, and my tool doesn't do this. So having a corporate data lake is really helpful to ensure that that data can be put together in an easy manner. You still have your security, but you really do have everything there, and I can join it together however I want because it logically is one system. So to move data around, we use what's called a data factory. Now, this tool has grown a lot as well, and it's getting really sophisticated. So I'm going to show you really quickly. If you want to just copy data, this is the easiest way to do it. So for instance, if I just want to copy data from Salesforce, I'm going to work with it in my own place. I don't want to put it up in the data lake, but I'm just going to copy it. Then all you need to do is create the data factory, create a new connection. And here are all the things that you can get data from. This is really great. Anybody here use SSIS?
Yeah, we've used SSIS in the past, yeah.
Yeah, so the biggest problem with SSIS is trying to get the connector and the drivers installed to get access to that system. It's the thing you take the most time. That's all obfuscated for you. You just click on it, the drivers are there. This is so great, so helpful. So I would choose Salesforce. I don't have an account, so I'm going to choose SQL Server because it's going to look exactly the same. And then I would connect to it. I'm going to use one that I already have just so we don't have to do that, but put the connections in. And then I'll come up and say, okay, what do you want from there? Here's all the tables that are out there. So, and this, again, Salesforce will look exactly the same. So I'm just going to choose this one, let's say, and it'll show me the preview. I can look at it, show me the schema. I'll say next. It says, where do you want it to go? I'm going to have it go into the data lake, actually, because I already have that connected. And then I will choose a path. Now, in the data lake, I default always to these 3 different folders. You could do more, but it's kind of important to ensure that this data lake doesn't just become a place on the floor where all the files are thrown. So I have incoming, which tells people, I don't know the status of this data. Cleaned, which means that data is cleaned. So yeah, you as the data scientist, you can go up and use that if you want. Curated means I've gone through all the data warehousing rules, everything, and I am saying to you, the company, this is data that has process-wise been confirmed to be right. So this is kind of like the data would feed your data warehouse. Cleaned would feed maybe your data scientist or somebody who's doing something else with the data. And I'm just going to put it in incoming. And then it's going to say what's a file name, and I'll just do that. And then it says, what kind of format do you want? Now, here's something really important. If you're moving relational data, always choose Parquet. And the reason why, here, I'm just going to get this going, and then it's going to say, okay, I'm running that. Now, let's take a look at it. And the reason why is, if you guys have ever moved data between systems, you know that in relational database systems, you can have hard returns and other kinds of delimiters inside of files. And when you put them out to a file, all of a sudden that file can't be read as a CSV by anything because the breaks are in the wrong place. Parquet is an Apache format. It solves all of those problems, and it's used almost all throughout this modern platform and through Databricks, everything. Databricks by default uses Parquet. So don't make the mistake of putting relational data into a text file and trying to work with it. Put it into Parquet and then put it somewhere else. They can't open a Parquet file except for with a Parquet viewer. But so and that's done. So if I go here and look back into my data lake, I put it under incoming. And there it is. And it's really, really fast. It's amazingly fast. Okay. Am I going too fast, too slow?
No, that's good.
Okay, so now here's the great thing about data. That was really easy to do, but there's also all this code behind this. So I just created this pipeline, and it's just a simple copy with the source and a sync, but there's all kinds of automation that I can do for this and parameterization. And I have all these functions, which is very much like SSIS, where I can add to this. So let's say I have a notebook in Databricks that takes this data and cleans it. All I have to do is attach it like that, give it the information about what it is, and then I can run this whole thing. I can schedule this to run with a trigger every day. This is a real common thing we do. I can add ifs, else. There's so much you could do here. And again, this is being used a lot as a transform. Uh, and one of the questions you'll have is, well, should I use this for transform or Databricks? I find that Databricks is a better tool for transform, and use Data Factory to orchestrate all of that because it's visual, and I can put in between, I could tie together all the different services basically. So that I have one place where it's logging what's going on and I can see that. So that's kind of my approach. And then if you look behind this, there's all this code. Now, when I use ADF, because I'm a person who likes code because you can reuse it, I actually write all this code, and I have some tools that make it easy for me, but whatever, so that I can get as sophisticated as I want. So I can make this be an incremental load for Salesforce. Don't load anything except for what was not loaded the last time. All kinds of things that you can do with Data Factory. Any questions about Data Factory?
So, so why not? Why Data Factory? Why not? Why didn't they? I guess why did Microsoft use this as a new tool instead of just incorporating everything into SSIS?
Oh, that's a really good question. Because it started out kind of a new platform, and they didn't have anything, all the stuff they needed built in for SSIS. And SSIS uses a different approach. So the big thing with SSIS right now, if I use SSIS, I have to use the resources of that SSIS server, and I can't scale that server. So the big thing, other than buying a bigger server, the thing about doing it in this distributed platform up on Azure resources underneath is I can get as much memory and CPU as I need, and we know SSIS does that. But SSIS is also really focused on that transformation. In the cloud, it's kind of a different approach. You load it, and then you do some transformation. So rather than in transit, in flight, which is the way you needed to do it when you were on premise. So people ask us a lot, should I use SSIS or use Data Factory? You can migrate SSIS to Data Factory now, but you're not going to get really the functionality and the kind of the performance and scale. I'm all about performance and scale that you want with this platform. But they are adding in data flows, which have just come out recently, they're adding something that's going to look very much to you like SSIS, and that will include all those transforms, the things that you would do in SSIS. So you're going to see that people will use a little mix of this. It just becomes a question of, do I want to transform in Databricks, which is a great transform tool, or do I want to do it here? And if it was something real small, like I know I'm bringing data in, I just need to change the data type, I'm going to do it in Data Factory. But if I have a whole bunch of work I need to do for cleaning, I'm going to use Databricks because I like that logical separation. Ingest, data factory, transform, Databricks, but only if I need it. And only if it's big data. So here's a really important thing to understand. Don't use Databricks for small data. It'll be really slow because it goes in, it spins up all these computers underneath. So absolutely, if you've just got, one data set that comes in and there's a million rows and that's it, use Data Factory to do your transform.
Gotcha.
Any other?
Yeah, that was good.
Okay. So we've got our ingest. So now we have all our data into, and again, the logical construct is somewhere up here in the cloud, in the data lake, or in data blob data. And I kind of see those things a little bit as the same logically. So now I need to do something with it. I have to clean all that data because I got to be able to put it together into a data warehouse. But not only that, I have to put it in a way and clean it in a way that my data scientists can use. So this is something we see a whole lot of. Everybody's very excited about data science, but unfortunately, when they go out and do it, the data is just not in a way they can use it. So you've got data scientists doing a whole bunch of data engineering work, and data engineering now is a term that's used for just that ADF, transfer it, and do that kind of repeatable cleaning. You're paying a data scientist to do stuff that's never been done before. I want new models. I want to find new insight. That's the benefit to you for a data center. It is not doing data engineering. It's not doing cleaning, deduping data, all that kind of stuff. So when you go forward, make sure that you don't, sometimes you don't have enough resources and you're going to just start with the data science. But by understanding these roles, you say, okay, now this goes to the data engineer's job to transform it, everything, to get it to the point where the data scientists can use it. I can't tell you how many customers come to us and go, we can't even do data science if we wanted. The data's not there because it wasn't clear to people at the beginning that you have to still do all this work. Okay, so I'm going to use Databricks to show you this, and this is the UI for Databricks. So it's a real interesting UI, and I'm just going to go here to create this cluster. It's created, is to start it. So if anybody has used Hadoop before you can use a Hadoop system, you have to go out and create all I can't think of the word, but set up all these servers underneath and make sure that they have all the information they need to talk to each other as one thing. This is pure distributed computing. It's what Facebook does. It's what Google does. It's what Watson does. Anything that has to process huge amounts of data has to be able to treat a cluster of machines as a logical computer. This is really hard to do. If you go out and try to install Cloudera, Hadoop, there's people whose whole jobs is this. The people who built Apache Spark came to Microsoft and said, let's build this Databricks with you. You do all that work underneath that our customers just can't do, and then we'll put all this Spark on top. So it's so great. This is such a great tool. It's changing businesses everywhere because to get to do big data, you got to have big machines, and that's really hard. So right now, the reason why this is taking a long time to start up is it's going out, and I said I wanted to meet at least 8 workers, which are translate to computers. It's going out there and set those things up for me. So if I wanted to just say, oh, I got to get the name of that guy from Salesforce who tried to call me yesterday, this is not the way to do it. But if I have to clean all my data and use, I've had one system where I had 400 logical processors. This is the way to do it. And it's really, really fast. I had one customer who they used device data from insulin devices. They took 4 days they get a week's worth of data for their customers, 4 days to clean it manually, automated SQL processing. When I converted it to Databricks for them in this same process that we're showing you here, it took 4 minutes. Their comment was, this will revolutionize our company, which is really true. But again, it's distributed computing that's doing it, and the fact that it's so easy. Okay, so while that's spinning up, let's go back and take a look at a workspace. So, and then this is the really cool thing about Databricks. If you're a SQL person, you know that there's lots you can do with SQL, and SQL is based on set theory. There's a relational algebra behind it. So anything that does set theory, joins, etc., is really good. But then sometimes you have to go and do this string manipulation, which is super lame in SQL. So Databricks allows you to create new workspaces. By the way, this workspace is really an IDE. It's hard to see that, but that's actually what it is. It's just a graphical IDE. And you get to choose all these languages. So if I want to do Python, because I'm going to do, I'm a data scientist, I want to do a Python, I can choose that. But like I'm a SQL person, I use data a lot in SQL way. I'm going to choose SQL, create it, and now I've got a SQL workbook. But the cool thing is I can interact between the two. So all by selecting Python, all that means is that my default is Python. If I want to use something else, I'm just going to tell it. So this particular Python query, right here, what it does is, and I'll run it as soon as this thing gets going, is it will go and mount a logical directory on my data lake. And then I'm going to also mount one against my blob storage. So right now I have Salesforce data in the data lake, and I have that treasury data in the blob storage. I want to join those two together in a query because I'm going to create a data warehouse from them. Here then is, once this gets going, is my query. This is Python to load from my data lake that piece of data. Real easy. And then I can say display and it will show it to me. Now, the other thing that's cool about Databricks is because it's an IDE, it's not just a program, it's a graphical IDE. I can go and list that data right off in all these different ways. So you can see why Python is really popular for machine learning and analytics, because I have all this ability right here to show that. Now, I'm not going to show that to the end user. I don't want, my people in my finance department to go here and have to understand this to look at it. But as I'm building it and I want to understand it, then I can use all this stuff to do it. And I'm trying to make sure I don't use all the time. Okay, now here's the best part I like. So here I can say, okay, now that's a data frame. That's a Python data frame. Create for me a view and call it bank data. And now I've just created all of the understructure for me to use this as a SQL table. That takes so much time to do that in the real world. Take something from Python, put it up into SQL. I did it with this command. And so I can now start writing by putting this little percent sign and say, okay, I want to use SQL now. I can start running SQL. And I can pass it back and forth. So this is really powerful. I just love Databricks. You probably can tell, but I really like Databricks. It's so powerful for my data engineering. Any questions about this?
No, that's very cool.
Yeah, it is. It's really exciting. I mean, it really is a game changer. It's also for it's a game changer for your database people too, in that you want to get them moving to understanding Python and working with Databricks. At first they're like, no, I don't, it's, it's too new or stuff. It's not. There's nothing new in the world, really. It's just enhancements. So I think all data engineering for big data should be done in this. Obviously, if it's a quick little thing, you could still use SQL. And again, I can pass it back and forth. All my SQL, I already know I can do. I can dedupe. All the tools for Python that were really hard for us to do in SQL are all there. Really powerful. And when I run this, again, for 4 days to 4 minutes, it's really fast. Billions and billions of rows are processed really fast, specific for a very physical reason. It's got a really good processor, but it's really the fact that now I can have as many machines as I want underneath, and it's completely abstracted from me, and it's really fast to run. It's really revolutionary. I just love it. Okay, so now we've got our data. It's all cleaned, and I would save it up into the data lake under cleaned up here. And then at that point, I would, send, by using Data Factory, after I put it up there, I'd send an email to my data science people, whoever, saying, oh, clean data up there, do whatever you want. Then we go to the curated data part. So we've done all this. Now, though, I want to publish this in a way that my regular users, because I want to allow for self-service reporting. The days of having to ask somebody to create your report are gone. I have to have something out there that someone who's using Excel, Tableau, Spotfire, Power BI to just go and do that. I still have to curate my data. It's really important to remember that. I still have to go and make a data warehouse that's authorized basically for public use. So how do I do that? Well, there's a couple of ways. Again, I can use Databricks just to save it up in the data warehouse, or I can use Data Factory again, and I like to use just Data Factory again, and I would just use a pipeline to move the data from the data lake, the clean folder, up into my SQL database. So I've already done that because I don't want to run out of time. So this is what I've already done this up here. And here I've got these three tables, right? This is a daily sales fact table with two example dimension tables. Now, in our use case, this is sales because that's what data I have, but just think of your own, what your stuff would be. You still have a customer, and I don't know, and your daily sales wouldn't be sales. But the point being is that in my daily sales, I was able to query across both. I could join that treasury data with my sales data because in Databricks I can access them both exactly the same way and join them. So I've just got corporate data that has, and when you do your POC, you want to think about doing something like this that I haven't been able to do before easily, and I can just go and create it all together. So this is a very typical dimensional and fact table that I've created in my data warehouse, and I can put that up for anybody to use. Now, data warehousing, though, the data warehouse is not as easy or as cheap, to be honest, to use as analysis services. So I actually really want to have an analysis service running up in the cloud. So everybody, this is exactly exactly the same product that you used before. You create this analysis. Have you guys used analysis services?
Not to this point, no.
Yeah, okay. It's great for creating models and deploying that out for multiple use. You don't necessarily need to use it, but it serves out faster than data warehouse would for lots of people. Data warehouse is not slow. It's really good for, I've got to do a lot of analysis and use a lot of memory. Analysis service is best for, I just want to serve this data out as fast as possible. So to create that, then I just do, just like I always have before, I create a tabular project. I'm going to get a model. It's going to have, I can build that model exactly the way I would in the past. I don't want to do an analysis services session because it's a known product. It's just in the cloud now, so it scales. And then deploy that out. And where that's going to deploy that then is to this service where I can easily attach Power BI, Tableau, Excel, whatever I want. And all I do then is in Power BI, sorry, I'm just going to say I want to get data. So here I went and I got data from, what's going on? Where's my data? Oh, okay. I went and said I want to add get data and add data, and I just put in the name of the server in Azure, and it works exactly as if it were a SQL Server on premise. So the people who know Power BI know how to use it against all of the things that we've showed you. I can add data, I can add new sources. I don't know why I can't get new sources. Stop doing that. I'm not a very good Power BI person, I'm so sorry. But basically, you can see those three tables over here, and they're joined in Power BI as Power BI does that. And that means that I can just very quickly create however I want to a new demonstration.
Right. Yeah, we're very familiar with that tool. So.
Okay, perfect, good. But you get the concept, right?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, questions. So we took it all the way through. I hope it's kind of clear as what your vision might look like for a POC or this particular, when we started doing this, there were lots of different tools and we kind of went off in different paths as they came along. And over time, we're able to really coalesce it down to the best tool sets for the best process. And this is what's working really best for us right now.
Is there times where you've seen where data scientists are just directly accessing data from the data lake rather than analysis services, for instance?
Absolutely. In fact, generally the data scientist people do just go, they kind of, at this picture, they kind of cut off right here and just start going against the data lake. The only time where you might want them to go against the analysis services is if you want, the analysis services is really more of a process thing where whoever built that data warehouse has said the company signs off on this data. If you use it, you will be okay, in that it's already, for instance, like gross margin. Everybody might calculate that differently. It's the business is chosen this way, so that's what's used in that model. So your self-service is safe. Machine or data engineers data scientists, I completely lost the word, might want to use some of that data, but they might want to use it in a pure way because they're doing data science against what data comes in. So it's very common for them to go against the data lake. You just need to make it very clear, and it's a business process thing. Data warehouse, curated, signed off on. Data lake, all different kinds of ways. You do your own due diligence.
Yeah, so if I'm hearing you correctly there, Sharon, is that by the time it gets to the analysis services data warehouse end of this spectrum, is that most of your business logic is well defined within the analysis services and data warehouse side, whereas the data lake you're looking at more of the raw data. It may be clean, and it may be deduped and those kinds of things, but that's probably as far as it's been taken, right, with the curated side.
Yeah, generally, we do have some people who are taking the data that would have been in analysis services in the exact same format and putting it into Databricks Delta Lake, which is a relational database. It's new, and but it's within that Databricks structure because, again, it might be easier for the data scientists to use it there so that they have the benefit of not having to worry about going to the data warehouse and all that kind of stuff. They just use the data lake, and that would be stuff that would be in that curated folder. Where they're saying, okay, this is this data or you could just call it data warehouse or whatever. This is data is there. You don't need to go to the data warehouse if you don't want to. You can just use it directly right here from Databricks. Now, you could call to the data warehouse from Databricks, but you don't want to get in the way of anybody. We don't want IT in the way of anybody. So a lot of times I put it into the Databricks Delta tables as well, so that the minute that data comes in, it gets cleaned, it's available for use by people. So the other part is driving that reporting, that self-service reporting.
Yeah, and Adam, I think I kind of understand the nuance behind your question. This is when modern data estate came out a couple years ago, this is my problem with it. I'm an old Kimball guy, like a star schema guy. I've got my book here somewhere, right? And so I want that one version of the truth. And I think what you're asking is, well, hold on, if I've got a data lake, which is non-curated data, and I let my data scientists on it, like where's my one version of the truth, right? And that's a problem. And you solve that problem in a couple of ways. One is you do what Sharon's saying is you as a company, it's a business issue. You as a company, you come together and you agree what gross margin means, right? And everybody agrees. You say, okay, so this is our data warehouse. You could even call it a cube if you wanted to, if you're using analysis services. This is our data warehouse for finance, and we've agreed on what that is. We've agreed on what revenue means. We've agreed on what gross margin means. We've agreed on what profit means. We've agreed on that. That's fine. And then, but Sharon's right. You don't want IT in the way because IT can be a blocker to that. And so if you have data scientists or if you have folks that are good at data, you give them the data lake and you put governance around it. And you say, look, experiment, prototype, mess with that stuff, find your insights. And then once you get something that's working, then we'll go through a process that agreed on to memorialize what those metrics are, right? Whatever they might be, whatever you're looking at, maybe it's a whatever it's called a sales, it's marketing. Okay, this is what we define as a sales qualified lead, right? So fine, so we've all agreed on what that metric is, and then we can curate that. We can agree on it. We can sign off on it, and that becomes its own data mart or data warehouse. So if you're wondering where the version of the truth is, the version of the truth is in your governance processes. And then you have the best of both worlds, because you have this great Petri dish that you can let your data scientists go experiment with, and the citizen scientists, if they're good enough, can experiment with it, and you have free access to data. But the process says, hey, we're not going to trust it until we go through this validation process.
I really want to reiterate what he just said. We have seen so much failures with data lakes because of this very issue.
Yeah, governance,
so
baby.
this is
Governance.
this is really critical, and it's all about process. And Kimball is still absolutely critical. We still live and die by Kimball. Don't let anybody tap you out of it. Doesn't matter if it's in a data lake and it looks like it's just data. Underneath it's a relational database with a cost-based optimizer, and Kimball is important.
Yeah. So as an aside, I have a signed copy of the Data Warehouse Toolkit by Ralph Kimball. There you go.
Oh, see, I'm jealous.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I'm a Kimball person too. So it kind of sends my heart into a little bit of panic when you talk moving away from star schema, because it's just so easy and clean.
Yeah, and I want to say this over and over again. I'm sorry, because you'll get internal wars.
Yes.
There'll be the new people who are like, no, the data lake doesn't have any of that. You don't need to worry. That's absolutely not true. Relational theory is the algebra. It doesn't change. It doesn't go away. Mm-hmm. And we see, so even if you're in data warehouse, Azure Data Warehouse, which doesn't have primary keys or logical keys, when I bring data in, I'm going to have to do that work myself. I'm going to have to make sure those primary keys are right, that foreign keys are right. That's a big part of cleaning. So actually, that data engineering job ends up being making stuff Kimball ready. And people you will find in maybe 6 months or a year, people like, yeah, I get it. But you're going to have, us modelers were always having to beat the drum, and people are like, no, the data just throw it in. That's absolutely not true. Live and die by Kimball.
I'm glad that it's worth repeating. And I'm glad that came up, because if you're, it sounds like we're of like minds here.
Yeah.
Okay, great. This has been fantastic and very enlightening. I am very thankful we did this.
Cool. And hey, I recorded it, and I'll send you the copy, because that was really, that's kind of a 200 level class on how it works. That was Sharon. Thank you. You are a linear thinker. A, then B, then C, then D. So that's very nice. Okay, so when we left off last time, I'm going to go to my notes here. We left off last time, Adam, you were saying, so you need a little time to choose a scenario and to gather the data for whatever pilot we're going to do. Are you still in that mindset?
That's correct. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to talk with Jessica and Caleb a little bit more, and we were shooting it around a little bit and playing with some ideas. And so,
good.
So we'll do that. I'm gone Monday and Tuesday, but Wednesday, Thursday, we'll start to talk a little bit more about that and be able to start gathering some of that data together and how we can best get that to you guys to give us a little bit more of a POC pilot, whatever you want to call it, kind of thing.
Okay. So I want to get this funded by Microsoft. I think we still have, we have Kylie on. So Kylie and Lindsay are gonna help with the funding. In order to get that funding, they need some sort of document, like a statement of work, right? So would it be all right if I roughed one out that talks about a pilot, and we'll leave the specifics about exactly which data we're going to use and exactly which use case we're going to use? But can I rough out a statement of work and
please do, John. That would be great. And we can fill in any gaps that we need to, or any more details. That's fantastic. Yeah, please do.
Okay, good. Okay, then tell me this about the money, because the money matters. I mean, what is so if we want to do this pilot, what is a number that's not going to cause you to go through a bunch of cycles to get approved. And I'll tell you, the funding we're going to get is probably a big range, $5,000 to $10,000, right, from Microsoft, and probably in the middle. I would say is that probably in the middle. So think 7,500. So,
I need to, I need to talk. Kylie also. We recently did a enterprise agreement and got some dollars associated with that. Is that something that we could apply to this? Some of those credits? I can't remember. We can.
John, you might need to let me know, or I guess we maybe need to communicate on that too, if you guys, because I don't know if all partners actually utilize the planning services or the training vouchers. Well, training vouchers would more be, we move them into planning services. So, because certain partners can use them or accept them and whatnot. So maybe, John, I'd lean on you for answering that question if you know it or not.
Okay. Well, yeah, so I'll tell you what we should do is let's get you, Lindsay, and then my funding expert, her name is Caitlin, on the phone, and we can talk through it. Up to this point, I was thinking more about Pi or ESIF, or an Azure or Anywhere.
Yep.
Sort of thing.
Yeah, we can do probably a mix of those two, because if it's because what he's talking about is basically a software assurance. He gets some software assurance benefits with it.
Right.
So like for Adam's perspective, we can get funding, but then he could also leverage those as well. So it'd be probably in conjunction with that. But yes, we can also look into the programs and everything that we can leverage for Microsoft Team 2. Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me ask you this then. So it's some sort of a training voucher. This is a bit new to me. So it's a training voucher that you have with your EA?
Yeah, it'd probably be planning services. Training because for this is more of like planning. We're more planning a project versus training is more of like end user training or something like that. But you can actually convert your training vouchers into that. But yeah. So
okay, well, so I'm thinking probably out loud too much here, but
yeah.
What if we put a training component into the statement of work, right? So that means Sharon or somebody like Sharon comes and does a 2-day session or whatever it is on how to use this stuff.
Why don't we take it offline and kind of figure it out and everything? And because just figuring out the ins and outs of everything, because we can definitely leverage some of our different programs, and then just looking at the software assurance benefit of it too. We can figure out like maybe what qualifies or what doesn't or whatever. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll get something on the calendars around that.
Okay. Yeah.
Sounds great. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Okay, guys. Well, that was good enough. We'll be back in touch. I'll try to get something in your hands next week. And are you going on vacation, Adam, or are you working?
No, I'm helping my son and his wife move to Montana. He's getting restationed. He's in the Air Force and was up at Fairbanks, Alaska, and now they're moving him over to Great Falls, Montana. And so I've got to help him take and move stuff. So
sounds like
fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of driving, but hey, I get to see my kid. So
yeah.
I was gonna say it's going to be a little closer for you, so that's good.
Yeah, definitely.
Still cold though.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. All right, guys. Have a good
so
weekend.
much.
Have a successful move.
All right, thanks.
All right, bye.
Thanks. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Thank you.